Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at NIO. NIO to launch driver-free autonomous battery swapping stations later this year. The World Artificial Intelligence Conference wraps up in Shanghai, with the electric vehicle maker NIO announcing updates on the battery swapping station technology. During a keynote titled Intelligent Support for the Integration of Transportation and Vehicle Grid Interaction, NIO's Senior Vice President, Dr. Sheng Fei, announced that the brand will launch driver-free autonomous battery swapping in China later this year. The new feature will primarily target highway services areas, allowing vehicles to autonomously queue for battery swapping without the driver needing to stay in the car. The Vice President shared that the new technology has completed intensive testing and is expected to be available at selected stations later this year, as initially reported in Sina Finance. This development uses the vehicle's intelligent and V2X vehicle-to-everything equipment at the swap stations. As of today, the company operates 2,443 battery swap stations across China, including 809 on highways alone. This is something that is in NIO's infrastructure that is seriously underestimated. It's the NIO infrastructure in China. Look at this. This is truly incredible. This is truly, truly remarkable. And by the way, NIO has not been operating as long as Tesla, not nearly as long as Tesla. NIO is still a relatively new company, and for what they've been able to accomplish so far in China is really incredible. And if this development continues out throughout the European region, you can only expect the company to continue to do well. So during the keynote, the executive noted that by participating in peak and off-peak charging and battery swapping regulations, significant cost savings can be achieved. An example, Dr. Shen mentioned that the station in Denmark generates revenue through grid regulations and trading, covering 25% to 33% of the station's operation costs. NIO's head of the Southern European region, Nicola Marsala, hinted in an interview that the company will begin expanding in France, Italy, and Spain, despite the provision tariffs on Chinese-made EVs. So, France, Italy, and Spain. There is still yet to be much development on their expansion plans for the UK. I know that they plan to bring the ET5 to the UK market. It was supposed to be this year, I believe, but I think that's most likely been moved to next year or 2026. But I'm happy. I'm still happy. NIO has a really incredible infrastructure in Europe as well, including it's perhaps most developed in Germany. Once again, this is another reason why NIO is truly a once-in-a-generation car company, or just company in general. It is a one-of-a-kind company because of what they're able to do with their technology. It is really expansive. This is the only car company that's offering battery swap vehicles as far as I know. Perhaps there's other companies that are offering similar things in China, but NIO is perhaps the most famous for this, and they've really been advancing in this area. And they've actually been partnering with other companies, including Lotus, for their technology. And these partnerships will only continue to grow because NIO has the advantage in this area. Now, keep in mind, this is actually from December 2023, so it's actually more expansive than this. But as you can see, their expansion in places such as Norway, Sweden, Netherlands, and Germany is quite expansive, and they will continue to do this. And it's been about 6-7 months now since this update, so it's probably expanded even more since then. It's probably more impressive by now. So it plans to go to Italy, France, and Spain. Those are 3 major European regions that are really closely, together. They're really close together. So once again, Portugal will probably be one of the next on the list. Places like the UK and Ireland, they'll probably be soon on the list as well. I mean, it's looking good for NIO in terms of the European region. They will continue with this expansion until it looks exactly like China or even more advanced. But keep in mind, this is what NIO was coming from, a few years ago. Now, in an interview to Fleet magazine, Marsalis said NIO will naturally expand to more markets in the old continent, and the 2 sub-brands, Onvu and the codename Firefly brand, are included in the go-to-market plan. So it's like I've always said, one of the best things about NIO is that they are creating different car companies such as Onvu and Firefly. But what's unique about this position is that these companies will be able to use NIO's technology. NIO motor, NIO battery swap technology, their infrastructure such as their charging station and the swapping stations. Perhaps the swapping stations are the most important. So NIO sees this as a golden opportunity. They're building up all of these infrastructures. Then you can sell people cars, not just NIO cars, but other cars, and they can use these infrastructures also. Wow. I must say, they're thinking in 3D chess. On his LinkedIn profile, the executive says one of his responsibilities is to establish operation in Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece, Balkan, adding that it includes all NIO Group brands, so not just NIO, but Onvu and Firefly as well. So this is quite a move for NIO. It is quite a move for NIO. Just look at that. That is NIO's infrastructure in China. And let me just say, one day, this is what it will look like in Europe. One day, this is what it would look like in North America and perhaps going into South America and Africa also. Remember now, the NIO brand is not just a single brand. It's a family of vehicles. That puts the company in a very powerful position to capitalize on the market that people want cars costing 100 grand, 90,000, 80,000, 70,000, 60,000, 40,000, 30,000, and 20,000. And NIO can create all of those cars in all different categories and price ranges. And all they have to do is to create different brands. Currently, they have the NIO brand and the Onvu brand. And Firefly is still in development by the looks of it. But in the next couple of years, we'll probably find out what's going on with Firefly. We'll get some more information. So I do think this is a great move to see that NIO can advance their technology in terms of autonomous swapping. That's quite incredible because it's already been doing that to a certain extent because it's not the driver who swaps the battery. You just drive to the station and the car does it itself. The car autonomously does it itself with the driver in the driver's seat. So with the new technology coming out, does the driver even need to be there? Does the driver even need to go to the swap station? Can the car just drive itself there and drive itself back? I mean, if you live like 5, 10, 20 minutes away from a swap station and you need your car in the morning and your car could just drive itself to the swap station, get it done, drive back. China is in year 2100. Honestly, it's going to be remarkable when we see the first video of a Chinese car driving itself to a swap station, driving itself back home, and the owner is happily sleeping. Now, I still reiterate that NIO is undervalued. However, Sweden's third largest pension fund reduced NIO's stake, adds Polestar shares instead. And of course, Polestar being where it is right now is as cheap as you can expect Polestar to become as a company without it becoming ridiculous. And with Polestar bringing 2 new vehicles to the market, who knows how positive this company will be viewed next year, by the end of this year, 2026, 2027, when they add the Polestar 5 and Polestar 6. But do not underestimate NIO. I think to a certain extent, people are underestimating NIO and Polestar. And that is due to their connection to China. Because let's be honest, if NIO was a company that was in the US, people would never shut up about it. People would be like, oh my God, this is the greatest accomplishment of the American people, of the American economy. Look what they're able to create. If NIO was an American company, people would never shut up about this innovation and technology. But because it's a Chinese brand, you don't get a lot of supporters. You're not getting a lot of supporters. And the stock market is not treating Chinese companies very well. Even though Polestar is not a Chinese company, Polestar cars are being built in China, true, but it's a Swedish company. Volvo is a Swedish company. Volvo built cars in China, Europe, and America. Polestar will begin in building its Polestar 3 in the Volvo factory in the US. So does that make Polestar a US company now? Just because they build cars there? No. Where you build your products does not make you that. In fact, if that's the case, then Apple is a Chinese company because Apple builds their products in China. Now, I know this is hard for Americans to understand, but it is true. If you're going to base a company's identity on where they manufacture their goods, then Apple is a Chinese company, and so is every other company, because everyone manufactures in China. Do not pretend like you can live in your economy without the help of the Chinese manufacturing workforce. Do not pretend. It's hypocrite. It's hypocrisy, and it's stupidity and hypocrisy. It's stupidity and hypocrisy at the same time, because everyone knows it's stupid and everyone knows it's hypocrisy, and everyone just shuts up about it because no one is able to stand up and tell you, but I'll tell you, you're wrong. So apparently this AMF penchant for Sakring AB has reduced its position in the electric vehicle maker NIO by selling 562,700 shares, as revealed in a form filed on Wednesday. During the second quarter, the fund increased its stake in Geely's EV brand Polestar by 400% by adding 14.5 million shares. And of course, the shares in Polestar are incredibly cheap right now. I mean, it's basically less than £1 per share, less than $1 per share. How can you disagree with that? AMF's current position in Polestar is valued at nearly 21 million US dollars. The Stockholm-based fund initiated its investment in the Shanghai-based EV maker in the third quarter of 2020, acquiring over 276,000 shares at approximately $14 per share. Holy shite! So they've had a massive loss. They have had a massive loss. Now, investing in Polestar is good for them because they're both Swedish companies. I'm sure the Swedish fund, I'm sure they feel a lot more comfortable about their investment in Polestar because it's a home-based company. They have a lot more confidence in that. They have a lot of confidence in Volvo, so they have a lot of confidence in Polestar. And that's what I always say. If you have confidence in Volvo, you should have confidence in Polestar. AMF continues to accumulate shares until the first quarter of 2022, by which time NIO was already in operation in 5 European markets. During this period, the fund trimmed its stake for the first time by selling 211,000 shares, because you didn't really invest in NIO thinking that the shares were going to explode overnight, did you? This is a company that's currently being built. It's not even built yet. It's in its development stage. NIO is not where Tesla is. They're not where Volkswagen or Mercedes are. Understand, these companies are still startups. They're still building up themselves. And even Tesla struggles sometimes. But for the last few years, Tesla's had an abundance of investment. They haven't been short on investment, and that's worked in their favor massively. When you look at a company like Polestar, NIO, they might be a little bit uncertain in the area of funding, especially these days where people are not so optimistic about supporting a Chinese brand. And here I thought it was all about business. Business is supposed to be unbiased, it's all about business. But sometimes you can clearly see it's not all about business. People sometimes take it a little bit too personal. And again, it's hypocrisy. Because they'll be the first one telling you, when you're doing business, you should remain objective. Well, you're not. So regardless of the market or companies or funds not feeling super bullish on NIO, listen, the market, the vehicles, the deliveries, they're saying the opposite. The amount of cars that they're delivering, actually, just before we end this video, let's just take a look at NIO stock on Qualtrim. Now, the reason I'm doing this is to understand, for one, I say that, they might have a little bit of uncertainty when it comes to funding, but hopefully that doesn't affect them too much, because hopefully that they continue to get as much support from the Chinese economy as possible so that they become a successful brand, which they will become, because NIO is going to become the next Audi or the next Mercedes or the next BMW. That's what NIO is, and they're ready to compete. So one thing that I did wanted to have a look at is NIO's spending. A lot of their spending is actually going to R&D. I'm not really getting much data from capital expending, S&M, or G&A. I'm not really getting any data from those, but the data is coming majority from R&D. So that's research and development. But the reason I question this is because how much money are they spending in this infrastructure development in the European region? And in the Chinese region, the continued development, the continued infrastructure advancement. If you have any data on this or any article that can supply me with information, leave a link in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you in our next video. Peace.